They are everywhere. Look, and you will find them. Listen, and you will hear them. Contact zones exist all around us, and sometimes even within us. Mary Louise Pratt defines contact zones as social spaces where cultures meet, clash, and grapple with each other, often in contexts of highly asymmetrical relations of power, such as colonialism, slavery, or their aftermaths as they are lived out in many parts of the world today. One example can be found in Dayton, Washington. On May 2, 1806, the Lewis and Clark expedition, which is synonymous with the conquest of the American frontier and its native inhabitants, happened to make camp just outside the city. Today, there is a different kind of contact zone in Dayton.
Hi, my name is Kenneth Brighton, and I'm a supervisory civil engineer, and I'm 55 years old. I don't fit the binary norm. Yes, I personally would prefer to be associated with being transgendered, because that's how I identify.
El Paso, Texas, a city on the U.S.-Mexico border, has reflected the aspects of Mary Louise Pratt's contact zones in numerous ways throughout more than 500 years of history. But like in Dayton, Washington, a new kind of contact zone exists there today.
I'm Jazz, and I'm a student at UTEP, special education student, and my occupation, I just tutor a kid, and I'm 24 years old. If I could just live my life with being called Jazz no matter what, no pronouns whatsoever, then that would be pretty cool too. But I guess I'm a guy and I'm Jazz. That's me.
Just like the historical conquest of the American West has created contact zones, diasporas, and exiles, so too the social construction of a gender binary has created contact zones, both internal and external. A new diaspora of those physically migrating from one gender to the other, and new exiles from family and friends, social institutions, and the gender binary itself. Ken and Jazz are both transgender, each at different stages of their respective gender migrations. With the help of their acquaintances and loved ones, they give an in-depth and personal account of how their identities as transgender individuals have been constructed in opposition to the societal norm. Willie and Lisa live in Walla Walla, Washington, 30 miles away from Dayton. Like Ken, Jazz, and many other trans people, their identity formation and the realization that they were different started early in their lives.
I remember being little, maybe 6, 7, playing with all my friends and seeing all the girls being all grossed out by all the stuff that we were doing. You know, we were playing in the trash or something. And I was just loving it with all the guys, and it was like, why am I not grossed out by this? This doesn't make any sense. I was like, yeah, I'm kind of different. Because I was loving it. I was just having a blast with all the boys. And the rest of the time growing up, I didn't like it because I wanted to be out there playing with the boys, but I had to do all this stuff with the girls. And it just never seemed right.
We're born in the wrong bodies. Our brains aren't matching our bodies. Our thought processes don't match our bodies. So, I mean, it gets frustrated to where, you know, that thing's not supposed to be there. Or I'm not supposed to have this. You know, it's not supposed to be this way because our brains are thinking the other way, just the opposite.
I had those feelings when I was very young, and it wasn't until I came across, I think the name of the book was Everything You Wanted to Know About Sex But Were Afraid to Ask, and in it, it had a section talking about, you know, gays, lesbians, cross-dressing, and the sort, and
They probably called it transvestite, didn't they?
I don't even remember for sure whether it mentioned, you know, that long ago it would have been transvestite, but it was one of those where when I read that chapter in the book and read the questions that they were asking and the answers, I realized at the time, you know, that that's exactly how I identified. So this was easily 40 plus years ago that I became aware that I wasn't normal.
If it weren't for media, if it weren't for the internet, for for God's sake, then I don't think that I would have realized this about myself. I think I would have still been a very confused and insecure person. When we moved back to America in 1999, we were watching, Sarah and I, my sister, were watching VH1, and they had this high school special, and a bunch of celebrities were talking about their high school experiences, and this particular episode was about, I guess, queer people, all shapes and forms, and Ellen DeGeneres was on there, and lots and lots of people were on there that I remember sitting there realizing they're human beings. Ooh, what? And then all of a sudden bubbles started forming. And if it weren't for me recognizing that gay people exist and that they are normal human beings and that it's not anything different other than who they're attracted to, if it weren't for the media, then and that non-censored media, or comparatively to what I had experienced before, then I wouldn't have ever developed. I don't think so. I couldn't talk to my parents, So yeah, TV and internet definitely helped.
I never really thought about it. Transgender people were just these people you saw on Oprah and the television. I never really thought about it. But then when it happened with Jazz, I was like, wait, this is, and I was like, oh, this is a big deal. And then I realized, wait, but you're still Jazz. It's not that big of a deal. Just calm down. And it was hard for him, especially because the girl who he was with had to accept it. That was he was in a relationship with her. You have to accept it in a different way, I think, than when you're just someone's brother or sister, you're not actually, you don't have probably you don't have sexual relations with them. You don't have to really think about your identity. And I think that may be what made it so much harder for him and made him so much more depressed, and it was so difficult. But it was worth it because he's way happier than I've ever seen him, ever. I haven't heard him talk about feeling sad or depressed in years.
Overwhelmingly, people have attributed the media as being the most prominent contributing factor in one's identity formation. It has also played a large part in forming the commonly held views that the general public has about trans people.
But if it weren't for me discovering, being linked to other trans people out there and hearing what they had to say, reading what they had to say, and seeing them, almost looking eye to eye as they're vlogging on YouTube. If it weren't for that, then I have a very strong feeling that I wouldn't have recognized this about myself.
I do watch a lot of movies. No, but I think media probably takes over most people's identity formation. I don't know about me. But
the influences on what helped me determine, my gender identity. If anything, the media has done everything it could to circumvent or prevent me from finding it, because transgendered individuals or cross-dressers are depicted in such vile and negative manners that, why in the world would anybody want to be that? They are indeed, at least if you believe what you see on TV, perverts. And it's a crock. The people I know, the people I've been around, the people I've met, are anything but that. They're probably more open and honest and genuine than the normal population in many cases.
Yeah, no, even I struggled with that for the longest time. I mean, I used to be extremely homophobic and but that was because of the way that I was raised, and also the fears that I held within myself, because I noticed myself being attracted to females and not wanting to conform to the female gender norms.
It's not a choice. Why would somebody choose to be that way? It's part of who they are, the way they were born. So get over thinking it's a perversion, because it's not.
I discovered I didn't like my body because it wasn't the right body for me. It wasn't that my hatred for my body, because no matter how thin I got, no matter how fit I felt, and no matter how attractive I could have looked, it didn't matter to me. And I feel like those are very standard. For you to love your body is you want your body to be in that mold, and I felt like I did adhere to that for a while, and it still didn't cut it until I realized that oh wow, there are very specific things I don't like about my body. My boobs, my hips. No matter how big I was, no matter how small I was, it just didn't. I hated it, but I know why I hated it. So
everybody automatically assumes you're gay. Everybody. Mm-hmm. I think they get it from the stereotypes from the media, or what they see in person, or movies, or whatever. But everybody automatically thinks you're gay, and they don't. Trying to explain to them identity versus orientation, you can just see that you completely lose them when you try to start talking that way, and so it can be frustrating at times.
Honestly, I know that not every trans guy has lived a life. There's this common misconception, or this common belief, that all trans guys were first lesbians, and then they decided that they wanted to be men, and that's how. I was gay, and I did realize I was attracted to women from quite a very young age, but that didn't say anything about how I felt about my body, and I've always felt a disconnect with my body. And then eventually I found out, oh well, I guess the closest I could be to any heteronormative identity is a straight guy, and that's where I'm at. But I went through all of that. I was gay. I am gay. I've lived a queer life. That's who I was, and that's who I still hold within me. That was my identity for a very long time.
When I started my transition, I had no desire for sex at all. Period. None. And it was all emotional. I wanted the emotional attachment. And for several years, I was celibate, and because there was no desire, and
because I wasn't cross-dressing for sexual gratification, and that's my understanding of the difference between the two. Mm-hmm. And it wasn't for gratification.
You cross-dressed because it felt normal to you.
Exactly.
Religion has also played a part in forming a commonly negative opinion about trans people, albeit with some exceptions.
I don't think that religion should have any part in judging people for their differences. And it seems like so many Christians today use the Bible and the teachings to hammer at people who are different than the norm, to tell them that they are wrong, that they're deviants, that they're going to hell unless they repent and come back to God and be like God intended them to be. Well, how do they know what God intended them to be? We are lucky that we have a pastor here who is very open, very accepting, and so is the church. So that's nice. It's a nice change from what you've been exposed to.
Yep.
Absolutely. Okay.
My name is Marjorie Johnston. I am a pastor in the United Church of Christ. I serve a small congregation, small being membership of 65 and attendance 45 to 50, in a theologically and politically conservative area in Washington State. But I have come to this community by their invitation as a same-gender partnered pastor, serving out and open and creating a little bit of chaos as we go. There is a piece, I think, of where religion shapes things, because religion is pretty backwards, excuse me, pretty backwards about some things in language-related ways and how we identify. And I think there's a lot of tension and disillusionment about who are you? You're a Christian, whether you're a Catholic or a Protestant, and how those things fit. So when we talk about other pieces of identity and the whole person's identity, I think that religion has skewed our freedom and our ability to adapt to information sources that are available to help clarify who we might be in the bigger context. I think religion in some ways has really narrowed a perspective that says, I just am, I was created by God, and it depends on where people's faith traditions lie, and how much they can expand on that, and how much freedom they take on that.
Oh, that is such a crock. Deviancy has nothing to do with it. I think that's hard.
No.
That kind of gets me riled up, because you've been called an abomination, and I think it's a crock. I don't think it has anything to do with deviancy. So,
even though I was raised Muslim and I've done traditional Muslim things, you know, like gone to the mosque and done the prayers and all that kind of stuff, I never had a strong relationship with Islam. I was very spiritual as a kid because that's what I mimicked my mom. I did think I was a prophet for a little while because I thought that would be cool. But it's always been all over the place, and so yeah, religion has definitely had a big impact on my life. But I think that it was more the culture of Islam that had that kind of stifled me at times, or strengthened me at times.
He would do really weird things, like show up purposely sometimes to the mosque without wearing a head cover, intentionally losing his head cover. He really, from the get-go, he felt uncomfortable with religion, and it sort of made him become rebellious. Our dad is a 51-year-old, 52, one or the other. He's a 50-year-old Muslim Arabic man, raised in the Middle East for his most formative years, and he is pretty religious, and he does not accept it. He barely got used to accepting Jazz as a lesbian when he was a girl who liked girls, and he barely didn't accept it. He sort of decided, okay, I'll tolerate it. But with the transgender thing, he reacted negatively. He made Jazz shave his face because the T-shots made him start growing a lot of facial hair, body hair, and he made Jazz wear long pants so his leg hair wouldn't show. He eventually got to the point where Jazz had to move out because it just wasn't working. They couldn't see really each other's perspectives very well.
When we start with the beginning and say that God created them male and female, we delineate that in our own sense of dualistic thinking. You're either this or you're that. And having said that, we leave no room for the continuum that people continue to try to put forward as we're really all over this. And there's not a right or a wrong. There is maybe a discomfort for someone with someone who is different than they are, but they aren't eliminated from the sacred text. They aren't excluded. In my experience with Judeo-Christian faith, we are all included. They're without exception.
Well, I was raised Catholic, but that kind of sort of fell off, like, I don't know how long ago. So, I mean, I still do go to church with my parents, and sometimes I can't sit and listen to the homilies when they are talking about gay marriage or whatever, anything. Sometimes I just have to leave.
What happened to the congregation or the pastor trying to come and save me? They still think I'm on the express elevator to hell. Still today. And the congregation was told that nobody alone was to contact me in person, because if they were alone one-on-one with me, that my evil powers would be able to overcome them, and then they would be like me, and they too would be on the express elevator to hell. So there had to be at least two if they would ever contact me in person, which none of them have ever done anyway.
And, unfortunately, I don't know that a lot of mainline churches or a lot of, I hate the phrase organized religion, but I don't know that it cultivates that very well. You're either having an individual relationship and experience with God, or you're a part of us, and this is what we do. And so the potential for groupthink exists, and it exists in a way of leaving people out. So I don't know that you can have an individual relationship that's very rich if you totally exclude other people from what that experience might be. At the same time, I think that there's a time to be separate and to spend time alone with the alone to get a better sense of what that might look like for yourself, understanding that you're still a part of something bigger.
I know that personally I've struggled with the fact that, biblically, God made man and woman, and it doesn't say about anything in between the binary, but then the other part of it is God, biblically speaking, is perfect, so he makes no mistakes. So being transgendered is not a mistake on his part. So,
all the sisters there, mainly Sister Linda Harding and Sister Waite, they were kind of like, well, it's okay, you're not crazy, we know people like you, it'll be okay, you can still be in the church.
Underlying the views and opinions about trans people, there is a debate about the difference between sex and gender. And that debate often manifests itself in the use of language and labels.
Because this sex doesn't make me identify who I am, and vice versa.
Sex is between your legs, and gender is between your ears. That whole thing. That's just something that everybody says. But I agree with it. I think that gender is how you discover where you fall in line with in this world, and I guess what is it, the pre-established binary. Where do you fall into that, and how are you going to break that? How are you going to fit into that? How are you going to adhere to the rules? And sex is just something, honestly, that you're born with it.
XX or XY.
Yeah, XX or XY, or however your genitalia is shaped, because you could be the manliest man in the world but still have a vagina. It's sex is something that's some people would say predetermined if they believe in God and stuff like that, or it's just that's the way that it ended up being. It happened that way.
I don't think they are interchangeable terms. They're not interchangeable. Gender and sex, no. Like somebody else said, sex is a verb. So.
Yeah.
And I think certainly within the church, they're the same. If you're a man, this is how you act, and this is what is expected and anticipated. If you're a woman, this is what's expected and anticipated, and there is no variation. There's no variable that makes it any different. But in reality, I think sex is a verb. Gender is an identity, and I don't know that we support that very well. I think that the whole acronym LGBTQI is misleading and allows for people to not have to consider the implications of what it means for other people other than hetero straight folk, to recognize that there is a growing and significant population of folk who are other and are met in so many different ways that we don't anticipate. So it's easier to just lump everybody together by not having to learn the words and the language.
I've gone and met the legal definition of a woman for the state, and the transgender part was part of my evolution, but I've assimilated as far as I can go, and so I kind of think my transgender part is I can continue to learn, but a lot of it is done as far, but I still will take medication, but I like to consider myself as a woman.
Mm-hmm. And I like to consider myself as a male, even though I was born female. But I really don't mind at all being associated with trans.
The labels, though, I'm still often unsure whether to say transgendered people, transgendered whatever, it's really. But I don't think it's a problem as long as you have a if I feel like someone will have a problem with it, I'll usually tell them, look, I'm going to use this term and try not to offend anybody, because it's really up to the individual what they want to be called. I think I don't really take too much heed in labels that much.
Oh, yeah.
And part of it is I'm over 6 foot tall, so I'm a very tall woman, and it's pretty obvious that dude looks like a lady kind of thing. And
we could keep doing. Ultimately, we should just get rid of that alphabet. We should just. I mean, my opinion of it is that it creates a space, and it's a nice label for people. But and I know this is idealistic, but we should transcend that. Get to the point where it doesn't even. You don't have to keep extending that on. It should, I like the word queer as an umbrella term for everybody. Like everybody who isn't super straight, who follows that heteronormative gender roles and everything, which is virtually nobody, and so that argument is kind of trounced in there, in that respect. So I don't think I have my issues with labels like that, but I do recognize that it's important for a lot of people because of perceptions from the outside world and from within. It's, I guess, yeah.
I mean, try to stop thinking of people as he and she, and like, you know, you're Arab, you're Muslim, you're, you know, whatever you are. I think we need to sort of like break away from that. Maybe acknowledge your differences, but don't hold on to them, because you're gonna push away some amazing people.
The struggles and the loss commonly associated with the coming out and transition processes for trans people have led to an exorbitant suicide rate, with 41% having attempted suicide in 2010.
Those things like you said, I think that being transgendered, you're forced to come out of the closet because, you know, it's not necessarily a choice, and if you're going to be true to yourself, you have to. And there's no way around it, because how you present yourself to society changes.
Well, how you present yourself is a lie.
Yeah, and, you know, honestly, for 55 years, in some respects, I've been living that lie. I know during the time I was married I did. Switching back and forth between roles is very difficult. It's one of those where I don't know necessarily that there's a different mindset, but like we were talking, you know, living the lie is real hard, and not being honest and open with people to let them in or bring them into the fold, knowing the secret is very difficult, or the dark side is difficult, and it makes it hard for me, at least, when people say that, you know, talk about how honest or trustworthy I am, knowing that they only know one side of me, makes me realize how big a lie I have been living all my life. So, yes, it's pretty tough.
When I told my parents about transitioning, my dad said, "Why couldn't you have just been gay?" Day one, we were married for 17 years. I told her from day one that this was me, and she said as long as I never went 100%, she was fine with it. We'd go off for a few weeks here and there, and I could actually be me, and the rest of the year I have to go back and be my old self. And she was fine with it until I went 100%. And then when I went 100%, the marriage was 100% off. But she knew from very day one. When I came out, my wife did not want me to physically touch her in any way whatsoever, even holding her hand, anything like that. And she was really, really, really angry with me. And she went around and told all the neighbors, went door to door in the neighborhood, telling them. There's some other places where I like to go where she went and told everybody. In the long run, she did me a favor because I never had to tell anybody. So,
my former spouse is a daughter of a Southern Baptist minister, and we raised our 2 children in the Southern Baptist church. And through all the teachings that they received, you know, they were led to believe that gender and sex were the same thing, and identified as a binary where there's either male or female. And the entire time I was married, I struggled with the fact that I didn't feel like it fit me perfectly. And when I came to realize that I was transgendered, when I broke the news to them, as Karen mentioned, I was called an abomination, I was addicted to pornography, and I needed to go to these seminars and,
What was that called?
you know, find the path and come back to it. And it's like, no, that's not who I am, and that's not what I need.
The person who had the hardest with it is our only other brother. He's 14. He still doesn't call jazz he. He won't accept it. Not that so much that he has a problem with it. He still treats jazz the same way, and he looks up to jazz, definitely. But he has a hard time, and I've spoken with him about it a few times, you know, driving him to school, and he said, you know, I don't know why he has to. He knows we'll love him anyway. Or he'll say he knows she will love him in any way. That was so confusing. But he just doesn't, he can't really, he's just not comfortable with it. I think a lot of it is because being 14, he's struggling with his identity in his own way, maybe.
I mean, I don't see any of my Arab Muslim family anymore. Even the ones that live here. I avoid them completely because they've kind of made it clear that they don't want to see me anymore. And my dad doesn't want me around them at all. So, yeah. That's my...
Chaz loves our Muslim Arabic family, but they don't accept him. And that's something that I think is definitely... I'm so glad I don't really have to deal with that, you know? I mean, I can't imagine not being accepted for who I am and still loving those people even though they don't like who you are. Jeez, that would be crazy.
You know, like in my case, I lost a wife, I lost 5 kids, I lost grandchildren in a flash. In just a paragraph of words, they're gone. There's a mourning process. Because everybody in the family has just lost, in my case, they've lost a father. And that father's gone. I mean, there's no more name. That father's, you know, it's a mourning process like death. I mean, and you only get one chance to tell somebody. And sometimes you think I could have told somebody better, you know. When I was a trooper, I had to do death notifications. I had to go knock on somebody's door and tell them, your daughter died. You know, you get one try at it, and that's it. You can't. There's no do-overs. And there is definitely a mourning process in that, and then they have to hopefully accept the new person. And it's been 5 or 6 years, and my son and I still haven't met. We've emailed and texted a couple times. We haven't even talked on the phone. He says I'll never see my grandkids ever again, that sort of thing. But
lesbians, gays, bisexual, transgender, questioning, or queer, and intersex certainly struggle to find compassion, even from each other, in how those terms are used. It is, I think, important and necessary to continue to wrestle with that. And I think that people who identify in that category as LGBTQI have some responsibility for helping educate and expand those definitions, not as wearing it as a label. For instance, I don't always identify myself as an out lesbian pastor because, first and foremost, I'm an individual. I'm a person, and I have many roles and many hats. I just also happen to be in a same gender-loving relationship that some people might use lesbian as a way of further defining who I am and how I fit into their perspectives of the community in which we exist.
The relationships that trans people have with others create another kind of contact zone and another challenge to identity.
I know back before the whole transgender thing came out, before Ken realized that he was transgendered, I was in an online support group that was for significant others of crossdressers. And I was amazed at how many of the significant others were afraid that because their husband, boyfriend, whatever, cross-dressed that it meant that they were a lesbian if they were attracted to them. And number one, I don't think there's anything wrong with being lesbian. And number two, I don't agree with that. I don't think that makes them like that. Your gender identity is genetic. So just because your boyfriend dresses as a woman, I don't think that that has anything to do with it. And I had no problem with you dressing as a woman. It was kind of fun. So I don't think that changes anything about me. If people want to call me a lesbian, that's fine.
It's just a label.
It's just a label. And it makes no difference to me. So after the first couple of minutes where I had to think about this, way back when, it's not been a problem for me at all.
It's like, well, does this make me queer in some way or what? But, and then a lot of people asked me more than I asked myself, mostly, actually. A lot of people are like, well, what does that make you? You know? Yeah, most definitely. Even with my own parents, they thought that I was rebelling when they found out that I was dating Jazz, and they love Jazz now. But in the beginning, it's like, well, are you rebelling? You've always been such a good kid. Like, what happened, you know?
And really, it was just my charm.
No, but they didn't. They couldn't see that that had nothing to do with me liking this person, you know, that I wasn't, like, trying to, I mean, who would I have, I don't know, been rebelling against out of my society, I guess.
Can't say that I ever thought that I would become involved with somebody who was a cross-dresser or ultimately transgendered. It made me pause a little bit for a little while, and then
about like a 5 count.
It just wasn't very long, and I realized that it was no big deal. And I've been around a room full, or rooms full of cross-dressers, and I found it perfectly natural. So I don't know what that says about me, but delightful group of people that we were with. But cross-dressing, like I said, is not. It's not a choice. It's something that a cross-dresser feels like they have to do.
Though recognizing the existence of their own internal and external contact zones, there is hope and acceptance for trans people.
And struggled.
Well, I've grappled and struggled with the entire, I've had all kinds of internal struggles. So I guess from that perspective, yeah, it might be. But I've reached the point now where I'm fine with who I am. If others have an issue with who I am or how I present myself, that's a problem they need to deal with. I can't help.
I'm a cluster of cultures and identities and sexualities because of who I was before, who I am right now. Ultimately, who I was is still kind of who I am. I still hold it, like the essence of that person within me.
The support group is, I've got several friends, several acquaintances that are transgendered, and then I have Karen, and that's basically, in addition to the therapist, I say that's been the support group I've got. And it's been a great help. It's really helped me see and deal with some of the issues of coming out and going full-time. I've been truly amazed and honored that those that I have shared with have been so honest and accepting, particularly, compared to how my immediate family responded to knowing I cross-dressed.
My soul and my heart just cry out that people could be kinder and compassionate, more compassionate than I expect they will be. Because people, again, with words, people can be cruel. And our learning is so narrow on so many levels.
I know that there's people who don't understand trans. I know there's people who think we're crazy. But the thing is, I don't really see much difference between us and people who are born in the right gender. I really don't. And all those people who think we're crazy, I just think they need to get over it.
In a society that is comprised by an overwhelming amount of contact zones, diasporas, and exiles, we as individuals must stop focusing on what people are and start focusing on who they are.
We're pretty cool. They're really pretty badass. Sorry.
Yeah, we're normal.
We're just like your neighbor. We're just like anybody else, and we just want to be treated like any other couple. We pay our taxes like everybody else. You know, we go to the grocery store like anybody else. You know, we get gas on our car like anybody else.
I still poop and pee. I still have to drink and eat. I'm just the same person. Yeah, it's a fraction of my existence.
Still
It just
a
makes
relationship that has its, you know,
normal fights.
yeah, normal
Yeah.
fights.
Yeah, we're good.
And at the start of the day, we put our clothes on the same way anybody else does, one leg at a time or one arm at a time. So, you know, we're as normal and natural as anybody else is. We just don't fit into the binary definition of sex or gender. It's more, I've heard people refer to it as a continuum, going from one extreme to the other. And you can't, we don't fit inside a box.
Just open up. You're always going to face differences in your life, no matter where they come from, no matter who they are. And if you can just, you don't have to know anything. You don't have to be an expert on gender identity. You don't have to be, you don't even have to agree with whatever is going on. But if you can keep asking questions and keep an open mind and not insert your beliefs into every other person's life, you're gonna have a way easier time. It's not just for me. It's not like, I mean, it would be beautiful if everybody could accept me, whether they know me or not, whether they know my story or not. If they could just accept me for who I am at the present time. That would be awesome. Plus, I'm pretty cool.